Okay, mi familia, welcome back to the Small Axe Podcast. Today, we're wrapping up our three-part series on my latest acquisition, a 6-unit property that was nothing short of a crazy roller coaster ride. Guys, in this final part, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what it really takes to get a deal closed in today's environment. What really goes down when you're this close to the finish line, but everything still feels like it could fall apart. And guess what? It almost did multiple times. I'm going to walk you through the emotional and logistical chaos of juggling a full time job, waiting tables at night, coaching, making sure my multifamily properties and my portfolio is performing the best it possibly can, seeking new opportunities, creating a whole new course and other supplemental activities for my beloved listeners like you. In other words, guys, I am crazy busy with jobs. On top of that, showing up for my daughter and my blended family, all while fighting tooth and nail to get this deal to the finish line. From negotiating with a tough seller, pushing lenders to move faster so that we can get this deal to the finish line and not lose $20,000 that we had already put in this deal, to tracking down missing paperwork, to pulling out every bit of creativity that I had to make the numbers work. Guys, I am laying it all out for you today. I'm also going to get real about the expectations versus reality of closing on your first few deals. The truth is, it's not always pretty. It's not always smooth, but it's always worth it if you're ready to fight for it. I also want to take a step back and zoom out for a second. Look at the bigger picture. Transaction volume is way down. Many people are frozen, waiting for the perfect time. Their pencils down. They're waiting for the Fed to pivot, for interest rates to drop, for the clouds to part. But listen, perfect timing is a myth. And if you're sitting there waiting around for ideal conditions, you'll miss the best opportunities. Discounts are out there, guys, but only if you've got the guts and the grit to get after them. You better come correct with resources, resilience, and with a damn sharp axe. Look, I didn't grow up with money. My mom was on Section 8 and battled addiction. My dad was a waiter. They were both amazing, loving, wonderful human beings who I cherish. But let's be real, they didn't have the mindset of wealthy entrepreneurs. And still, today, I now own 76 units in Florida because I decided to swing my axe over and over again. I decided to sharpen my axe, my tiny little small axe. Now's the time, guys. Stop waiting, start chopping. So let's dive in. All right, so this is the third episode now. I kind of forget a little bit about what happened on episodes 1 and 2, but I will do my best to catch you up. So I got this deal under contract in the middle of February. Let's call it around February 18th or so. We were supposed to do a 10-day close, which would have had us closing at February 28th. There was no real way to make that happen because I didn't have the cash to close. Just as a quick recap, we got this property under contract at $450,000, which is $75,000 a door, I believe, which is a great price point if you know anything about the Florida market. And the rents. We were already beating the 1% rule. If the rents are 1,125, so $1,125 average today, and we're buying at 75 a door, we're ahead of the game. Okay. Now, I didn't have $450,000 to close, and we had to go with a lender. So we ended up going hard money / bridge for two reasons. When you go hard money and bridge, it is obviously riskier and more costly than going with a traditional bank. But this particular property was a perfect fit for it, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Again, we were supposed to close on February 28th, 2025, and we did not. And I knew that I could not because I needed to get all the ducks in a row to make sure that we were going to be able to get some funds and get a loan on this property. And yeah, you can turn a loan around quickly, but we needed to get an appraisal, and that's another thing which slowed us down. So let me take a step back. First of all, we started with putting down $10,000 EMD, earnest money deposit. We then renegotiated, after doing our inspections, $50,000 off of the purchase price in the form of a seller credit. So we were actually going to be paying $400,000 for the 6 units, which comes out to about $67,000 a door, which is a huge discount and a great steal, in my opinion. Now, the property comes with issues, of course. Number one, there was some termite damage that we are going to remediate. According to our trusted inspector who has inspected every single one of our deals, it was nothing dangerous. There was nothing really wrong with it, but we used it as negotiating leverage, as I mentioned in previous episodes, to get our seller credit. We also somewhat scared this seller who needed to pump in some money if he wanted to fill his 6th unit, which is vacant. He's got 1 unit vacant. It is a 330 square foot standalone studio, which is in shambles, essentially. So it needs a gut rehab. He didn't have the money to do that. Let's say it's going to cost $15,000. He didn't have the money, didn't want to put the money in to do that. So he's willing to take a little bit of a loss. Now, recall that he purchased this property for $450,000 in 2020. Now he sold it to us for $400,000 in 2025. He probably made some money along the way. He probably had some cash flow here and there. But again, this guy is not from Florida, doesn't live there, was an absentee landlord, and was living in Honolulu. He's from there. Great dude. He ended up being a really good guy, and we're actually offering another property that it has. So I want to maintain a great relationship with this guy. But he's an absentee landlord, so he doesn't need this property. I would assume it's a headache for him. So we ended up renegotiating from $450,000 purchase price to $400,000. In turn, we had to provide him with our EMD. So we released our EMD of $10,000, which now became hard. And the objective was still to close on February 28th. We could not close on February 28th because we had a lender. And the lender required us to get a survey and an appraisal, which are both very costly, number one, and time consuming. So I mentioned also that we had the issue of getting our LLC set up. And that was our reason for pushing out the timeline, which was legitimate. So on February 27th, I believe it was, we requested a 3-week extension because we had just applied for our LLC. And Sunbiz, the organization down in Florida, which is where you create your LLCs, was lagging. There was a 10-day delay or so, give or take, for the LLCs to become visible. And you need an LLC to open up a bank account. You need an LLC to close on the property. Well, you don't need one, but we wanted an LLC for security reasons to close on the property. But you needed an LLC with an operating agreement to open the bank account, which we finally got. So our reasoning on February 27th was, hey, look, we need an extension of 3 weeks just to ensure that the LLC is going to be visible and in place so we could purchase this property in an LLC. We own 70 other units with investors, so we don't want anything putting those properties and our investors at risk. Now, he requested, as I suspected, another $5,000 of EMD hard money. So at this point, we were $15,000 in for EMD hard money with the seller, which was security for him in the event that we were not going to be able to close on this thing in the 3 weeks that we said we were going to close. And he could walk away with $15,000, no harm, no foul. It's a good deal for him. And you know what? People are not doing hard money today. And neither am I really until after due diligence. And I use it as negotiating leverage. And if I'm really certain on a deal, which you need to be really certain on a deal, you can use it as a tactic as well. But I caution against it if you're kind of green and a little bit new at this game. Next, I mentioned that our lender for the hard money loan required us to get an appraisal, which cost $4,250 expedited in 10 days. Imagine that. That's what you pay for a 6-unit property appraisal. Crazy. Also, we had to get a survey done, which was $675, and we had to pay for the LLC, and we had to pay for our inspection, which was about $1,000. So imagine we are in this now for over $20,000 that we are going to lose if we don't close this deal. So we reach out to all of our network and say, hey, who wants to pop in money to close a deal? We're going to close on the 6-unit property. We're going to give you 50% ownership. It's going to be epic. And we got somebody. My partner, Sasha, found a colleague of his who is also a businessman down in Haiti, just like him. And he was going to put in the entire $150,000 that we required for our down payment. And he was going to take 50% of the deal. And it was great. It was win-win. He said he needed until March 7th or March 8th or so to get the money. And come March 7th, March 8th, which I knew was a possibility, he backed out. So I got a call on March 9th, Saturday night, 9 p.m., March 9th, saying that our investor pulled out. Okay. Yeah, I was kind of expecting this. You can never count on somebody until money is in the bank. And what was his reason? It was valid. So he is not a US citizen. He was concerned that with all the new legislation, with the new Trump administration, that him as a foreigner was going to be taxed heavily or perhaps not even be able to invest in the United States. So what we did immediately was get him in touch with our CPA, who is knowledgeable on these matters, along with our attorney, who assured him that if we structured the agreement a certain way, he would have been fine and safe. Yet, he was not comfortable putting his capital into this deal. That was one reason. And another reason was he wasn't 100% certain on how the structure was. He didn't totally understand the structure of the joint venture agreement that we had in place and had laid out to him very clearly. In essence, he was a novice and a bit afraid of investing his capital. No harm, no foul. I totally understand where he's coming from. But from our perspective, we should have been a little bit more diligent with getting other investors in or ensuring that the capital was in the bank prior to, I guess, solidifying our relationship and agreement with this one person. Of course, I was still shopping around and talking to people, but I was not doing so aggressively. So now here we are, March 8th, 9 p.m., and we were supposed to close on March 18th, 10 days later. So we spent a little too much time going back and forth with attorneys and the CPA to try to get this guy to stay in the deal. And we then shifted our focus to all hands on deck to getting investors involved. Now, luckily, my partner Shane, he brought in his sister who was ready for a deal. Thank goodness for essentially half of the capital. And then I got a couple of people in the deal as well. And my partner Emeka as well helped out with that. So in the end, it was a crazy, wild scramble to get people to wire their money from me reaching out to them on a Tuesday to having them wire their money by Friday. Imagine that. Imagine waking up on Sunday morning and being like, oh my God, I have no money. And then spending all day Sunday and part of Monday getting in touch with the CPA and the attorney to ensure that this guy can maybe put his $150,000 in, wasting time. And now come Tuesday, and I'm reaching out to every single person in my Rolodex to see if they want to invest in this deal and if they have capital ready to invest in the deal, number one, and then be able to wire it a few days later to make sure that we close on this deal. So lo and behold, I was panicking and I did not sleep. Whenever you're raising capital, okay, it's not like you can't sound desperate. So I couldn't have been, hey guys, I got a deal closing in 2 days and you got to give me money for it. That's not the way this business works. And if you're operating under those circumstances, it can seem that you're desperate and it can seem as though you have a bad deal or you have something wrong or it's like a panic mode. So it was really difficult balancing for me the urgency and as well as the patience with people that are not necessarily on the same wavelength as me. It was freaking crazy, guys. Anyway, so back to the story. My partner Shane's sister invested. She popped in some money by the end of the week. She liked the deal. Then I had two people that had to wire money as well. I got one person wire the money at the end of the week as well. And the last person hesitated. Of course, this is how it goes, guys. So I'm scrambling, reaching out to multiple people, and it's a balancing act because I don't want to take too many investors, number one, or partners in this scenario. And I don't want to over raise and then tell people they're out. So it was a very delicate balancing act of how much capital to take and from who. I had many people willing to put in $10,000, $15,000. We just couldn't take it. I mean, it wasn't going to make sense if we have so many people in a small deal. At what point does it become ridiculous where we have all these people involved in a deal? Anyway, the team that I put together in the end, I'm very happy with and feel very good about. So we ended up closing the deal. But there was moments of doubt where like when I got a call 10 days prior to close that our investor, our partner was not going to bring the $150,000 and I hadn't reached out to my network yet. That was panic mode. You can't do that. You can't reach out to somebody and say, give me money tomorrow. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to look like a desperate fool. I panicked then, but got my head straight and made it happen. And then comes down to the lender. So the lender, and this is a quick tip for all of you out there, you have to ride lenders like crazy. Even if they're bridge or hard money when they say they can close in 2 weeks, you have to ensure that they are on their game. Because if they're not ready to close when it's time to close, they don't understand that you have $20,000 hard money. They don't understand that the seller is not willing to renegotiate and have another extension. They don't realize and don't care, and this has happened to me in the past, that your $20,000 hard is irrelevant to them. They don't care that you're going to lose it necessarily, or they don't have the same sense of urgency or desperation that you might have on the buyer's side when you're at risk of losing $20,000, which we were. We were hard over $20,000 right at this moment, $15,000 with the seller, as I said before. Now, back to my other story of the 20 unit deal that we lost $60,000 on. It was because of the lender. The lender didn't get their ducks in a row in time, and the seller ended up taking our $50,000 hard money deposit. Okay. We were hard $50,000, and then other legal fees and inspection fees, etc., were amounted to about $60,000. So at this point, it was a few days before closing, and I was panicking that the lender might not have it done in time. So what I did was I reached out to another lender that could potentially do it, and I reached out to somebody who has the cash. We were offered by somebody in my network the opportunity to wholesale the deal to them. This person had the cash to buy this on their own. Imagine that. They had the capital to come in and buy this thing, $400,000, and they offered me $25,000 to do so. So at this point, I could have just wholesaled the deal. And if you're not familiar with the term, oh my goodness, guys, this was a few days before closing. I'm talking to this person. We just met, and he's like, yeah, I'll buy it from you. I really like the deal. I will wholesale it to you. And I was like, okay, maybe how much? So if you're not familiar with the term, you can do like a double closing, or you can just assign the deal to somebody else at closing, and they close on the deal, and then they pay us the delta. So they buy the deal at $425,000, although it costs $400,000 at closing. So I get the $25,000 at closing. However, like I said, we were already in it for $5,000 of fees that we were not going to get back. And that was from the appraisal, from the survey, and from the LLC, and from the inspection, etc. We were not getting that money back. So now we're down to $20,000. And I had a broker fee of $12,000. So in the end, I could have wholesaled this thing for $25,000 and walked away with $8,000 for me and my team. It was not worth it for us. We wanted to go through in this deal. It's a good deal. But that was what I had to have in my back pocket. I had to have somebody that could close on this thing in cash, ready. I had to have a lender on standby just in case this lender fumbled and couldn't close. And I was ready for that. I was ready for all of these options. Thank God we didn't need it, but we almost did. So come March 18th, and it's time to close. So what I did was I counter offered that guy. I said, hey, if you're willing to buy this thing for $425,000, why don't you buy it for $445,000? I think I countered him at $45,000, and he thought about it. He considered it, but in the end was kind of waiting for me to fail on the deal and take it from us. And then at the $25,000, if that makes sense. And thankfully that didn't happen. We ended up closing on this deal. Now, come March 18th, we're supposed to close. And early in the morning, I'm messaging our lender, and I'm like, hey, are we ready? And she's like, yeah, we got this. We're going to be, closing today. And lo and behold, come 10 a.m., come 12 p.m., we're not ready to close this deal. I had a mobile notary coming to me at 3:45 that day to close this deal. It didn't happen. So I'm panicking. We now have to tell the seller that we need another 24 hours or potentially more, because after speaking with the lender, it turns out that they had not even sent the paperwork to underwriting, which can take 3 days. Okay. So we are now at risk of the seller saying, screw you guys, I'm taking your $15,000 and going to the next buyer. Remember, when we first got the deal under contract, there was another buyer at $475,000. And the only way that I won this opportunity at 450 was because I said I was going to pay our broker fees. So we did that. I also said that we can close within 2 weeks, and we didn't. So now here we are, almost essentially 1 month later, and we couldn't close on the deal. We finally got the capital to close the deal, and we couldn't close on it. But let's backtrack a little bit, because remember, I told you I had two investors wire their money on Friday the 14th, and the other investor who needed to wire $25,000 did not do it. So come Monday, I'm calling this person, reaching out. This person did not wire the money. And I needed it in the bank for that Tuesday, the 18th. So come Monday, the 17th, I'm like, hey, are we going to wire? And unfortunately, this person had a family emergency, which jeepers, creepers, guys, this, you couldn't make this stuff up. And he could only wire 15K, but at least he wired that 15K. And I was waiting on the bank and the title agency to tell me exactly how much we needed for closing. And I couldn't get that number until Tuesday morning. And thank God that number was just below the number that we had in the bank. So we only had $120,000 in the bank. We needed 116 and a half to close on this thing that day, Tuesday, the 18th. Crazy chaos. You want to have reserves in the bank too. So you don't want that to happen. Now we do, thankfully. We figured it and sorted everything out. But geez, so we were on Tuesday, the 18th of March. We were supposed to close. We did not close, as I said before, because our lender wasn't ready. They had just sent the paperwork to underwriting. And I'm here losing my mind thinking that we could lose $15,000 if the seller wanted to take that opportunity. Thankfully, the seller was willing to give us a 24-hour extension. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Thank goodness, he was a good guy. And we ended up closing the next day. Now, I work multiple jobs. So come Wednesday, the 19th, I ended up having to work a double. So I work at the school, and then at night I go right to a restaurant. I don't even go home. I leave my house at 7 in the morning, and I get to the restaurant at 3:45, and then I get home at 11 or 12 at night, whatever it is. So I do that because I need to put food on the table. I got bills to pay. I got things to do. I got goals and dreams and wishes that I need to accomplish. The deal had to close that day, but I had no time, and I wasn't going to take off work. Okay. I couldn't do it last minute. I wasn't sure if we were going to close that day until about 3 o'clock, or rather 3:20. I'm driving to work from my job, from school. I'm driving to work, and I get a call saying, hey, we're ready to close. And I said, okay, well, I can't. I mean, I have to work right now. So they said, we're not going to get another extension. You have to close this deal. I said, send me that damn mobile notary, send him, send that person to the restaurant. So I am working. This person gets to the restaurant at 6 o'clock. Things start picking up. I am hustling, waiting tables, getting crazy. And this person sits down, and she's the sweetest, kindest lady. She says, this is all I do. She ended up printing up the documents. And obviously, this happens all the time. It was printed incorrectly, not a fault of hers, but the title agency formatted the documents incorrectly. So she had to go reprint 100 and something pages. I'm working. She comes back. It was printed improperly again. So she had to reprint 100 something pages in her car. She comes back. I got her a nice meal, dropped her some water. She was forever grateful because she hadn't eaten that day. And she ended up letting me sign here and there as I'm waiting tables, as I'm putting in orders, as I'm bringing food out or cleaning up tables. I could go and scribble a couple of signatures, and she was eating her meal. She was happy, and we got it done in a couple hours that night. So you can't make this crap up, guys. This person saw the kind of life that I lived. This person was grateful for me. She slipped a $20 bill in my pocket. She said, this is for you, my hardworking teacher. I will never forget that. It just melted my heart. And I finally felt a feeling of accomplishment and relief that we got this deal closed. Okay. Boom. I got it off my chest. We got this deal closed. But guys, it was insanity. And if you're not ready for this, if you're not ready for this type of insanity and chaos and ups and downs and uncertainty and the risk of losing thousands and thousands of dollars of your friends' money, if you're not into this, if this is not for you, just invest passively with me. Let me handle it. I'm the one taking on all the stress. I'm the one willing to risk everything for you, for my limited partners, for my investors, for my friends, for my loved ones, for my listeners. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to build a legacy. I'm doing this for the next 10 plus years so that hopefully I can eventually live off of the income from my real estate portfolio. It's not happening yet. I'm not even close, guys. Truth be told, I'm not even close. I'm not making any money. But when the market shifts, I will start taking profits. When the market shifts and people are willing to spend more on a property, and I can take equity out from a sale or a refinance and reinvest it. And maybe at that point, I have enough deals to where I can justify taking an asset management fee and getting paid for the work that I put in. If you're not into this, guys, if this is not for you, don't do it. Be a limited partner, invest passively. I'm here for that. I help you do that. This game is not for everybody, guys. It's crazy. It's wild. Do I feel good now? Yeah. But could we have lost $20,000? Absolutely. We lost $60,000 once. I'll never let that happen again. I will never let my friends and my partners lose money again. So I do what I got to do. Now comes the real work. Maybe we will do an episode down the road about the renovations because we ended up deciding that we're going to do this as a flip. This is going to be my first multifamily flip, 6 units. We're going to flip it, hopefully sell within 6 to 12 months. So here's some quick numbers. We bought it at 400,000. We are going to sell it at 600 or 700,000. We put $140,000 into it. So we're in it right now for $540,000. So a return on that, we have to sell it for a minimum of $600,000 to make any kind of return worthwhile. Hopefully we could sell it for $700,000. Okay, so we're looking at a 20% return in 1 year, but a lot of risk. And on top of that, if you don't know about flipping, if you don't know about selling a property under 12 months, you're subject to a high capital gains tax, which means we're going to have to either pay that capital gains tax next year or reinvest whatever earnings we make into another property and do what's called the poor man's 1031. Simple strategies that you need to learn on your journey, and hopefully I am teaching. I'm going to cut this episode because I got a little bit emotional here. I got a little bit excited. I'm starving. I need to eat food too. And I got a lot of work to do. We now have another 6 units and a whole lot of chaos in front of us to get this to the finish line for a sale and make my partners some money. I want to show my friends, family, loved ones, investors, listeners that I am worth your time to listen to, that I am worth it to brokers to be the person they choose to buy the deals, that I'm a closer. But I also want to make sure that my investors are well taken care of before I am. Why? Because I need repeat investors. I'm not in this for a year. I'm not in this for one deal. I will do this until I die when I'm 111 years old. And that's it. So I don't know if I told the story well enough. I don't know if I hit every point. I'm sure I didn't because I didn't tell you the hours I spent with investor calls. I didn't tell you the hundreds of people that told me no to invest in this deal. I didn't tell you about all the supplemental documents I created for people, all the different models of underwriting that and scenarios that I created for people, the walkthroughs of the deal itself, the underwriting, the conversations that I had that went nowhere, all within a week because we were panicking, all while working, all while juggling multiple jobs and loving my family the way I need to love them. I didn't tell you it all, but I hope I basically got the point across. And it's my objective to teach. I want to teach people. So if you want to learn these things, reach out to me. Reach out to me now because, again, guys, I'm working on something, a course that will help people, but you're going to have to pay for that. Right now, I'm free, crazy busy, but I would love to help. Now, if you're still listening, you're not here to play games. You're here because you want out of the rat race. You're hungry. You're willing to bleed a little, sweat a lot, and grind every damn day to build something real. Guys, it's not going to take you a year. It's going to take you 10 years, but it's okay. And here's your call to action. Sharpen your axe, build your team, stack your resources, and swing like your life depends on it, because it does. I wouldn't have got this deal done without the knowledge that I had and the resources and the willingness to grind it out and not let fear take over. The window is open. Don't let fear, comfort, or excuses keep you stuck. I am living proof that you don't need money, a fancy degree, or the perfect background to build the wealth or the empire that you want. You just need to keep showing up, keep learning, keep swinging your axe. Let's crush it. Stay sharp, stay small, stay mighty. Love you guys. All right, and that's a wrap, Small Axe community. So I wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you liked it or got any value from it, it would really mean the world to me if you would share it with someone else and write a review. Remember, guys, keep sharpening those axes. Let's get out there. Let's crush it. Love you guys.